Baby found 3 German shepherds buried under cement rubble. What he did next had everyone crying. The faint sound caught 5-year-old Ethan's attention like a whisper in the wind. He stopped in his tracks, his small head tilting to one side, sandy brown hair falling across his curious eyes. What happened next would break hearts across the entire town. Ethan wasn't supposed to be playing near the demolished building site at the edge of Pineville. His father, Jake, had warned him countless times to stay away from dangerous places. But Ethan's curiosity always got the better of him, especially on days like today, when his dad worked late shifts at the local factory. "Just 5 minutes," Ethan whispered to himself, kicking at loose pebbles with his scuffed red sneakers. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the rubble, creating mysterious shapes that beckoned to his imagination. The construction site had once been an old community center, now reduced to nothing but concrete chunks and twisted metal. Yellow caution tape fluttered in the breeze, a warning Ethan chose to ignore as he ducked underneath it. That's when he heard it again, a sound so faint he almost thought he'd imagined it. A whimper, then another. Ethan's heart raced as he moved closer to a pile of cement chunks. "Hello?" His small voice trembled slightly as he called out. No human voice answered back, but the whimpering grew slightly louder. His tiny fingers began moving smaller pieces of concrete, his eyes widening when he spotted a patch of fur beneath the rubble. Not just any fur, the distinctive coat of a German shepherd. As he cleared away more debris, Ethan gasped. There wasn't just one dog, there were 3 German shepherds, barely visible beneath the heavy cement pieces, their bodies pressed together as if trying to protect one another. One of the dogs, the largest one, lifted its head slightly, dark eyes meeting Ethan's. The connection was instant, a silent plea that pierced the boy's heart. "It's okay," Ethan whispered, his voice catching. "I'll help you." The largest dog tried to move, but whimpered in pain. The others barely stirred. Ethan's small hands trembled as he realized how badly hurt they were. Their fur was matted with dirt and what looked like dried blood. One had a visible gash across its side. All 3 were breathing shallowly, their ribs showing through their once proud coats. Tears sprung to Ethan's eyes. Who would do this? How could someone bury dogs under concrete and leave them to die? But Ethan knew he couldn't move the heavy pieces by himself. His father wouldn't be home for hours, and calling 911 might get him in trouble for being at the construction site. Besides, what if someone else came and did something bad to the dogs before help arrived? Ethan made a split-second decision. "I'll be right back," he promised the dogs, his voice steady despite the tears on his cheeks. "Don't be scared." The largest dog's eyes followed him as Ethan backed away, his little heart pounding against his ribs. As he turned to run, a cold realization washed over him. He wasn't supposed to be here, and he didn't know who to trust with this secret. What if the same person who hurt the dogs came back? For a moment, he froze, conflicted. Then he remembered his neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins, always feeding stray cats behind her house. She might help. Ethan ran as fast as his small legs could carry him, his lungs burning as he sprinted through side streets and cut across the park. When he finally reached Mrs. Wilkins' small blue house, he pounded on the door, gasping for breath. The door opened to reveal not Mrs. Wilkins, but her father, who had recently moved in, Mr. Thompson, a tall, stern-looking man with silver hair and perpetually furrowed brows. Most kids in the neighborhood avoided him, whispering that he was mean and cranky. "What do you want, boy?" Mr. Thompson asked, his voice gruff. "If you're selling something—" "Dogs," Ethan blurted out between gasps. 3 dogs, buried, construction site. They're hurt bad. Mr. Thompson's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Slow down. What dogs?" Ethan's words tumbled out in a rush. "German shepherds, under concrete. They're barely breathing. Please help. I can't lift the heavy pieces." Something flickered in Mr. Thompson's eyes, a shadow of pain, quickly masked. "You shouldn't be at that construction site. It's dangerous." "Please," Ethan begged, tears streaming down his face now. "They'll die if we don't help them." Mr. Thompson stared at the boy for what felt like an eternity. Then, without a word, he grabbed a set of keys from a hook by the door and stepped outside. "Show me," he said simply. They walked quickly, Ethan practically jogging to keep up with Mr. Thompson's long strides. The old man said nothing, but Ethan noticed how his jaw clenched tight, his hands curled into fists inside his pockets. When they reached the construction site, Mr. Thompson raised the caution tape for Ethan to duck under, then followed himself. His eyes scanned the area with a practiced intensity that made Ethan wonder about the old man's past. There, Ethan pointed to the pile of concrete where the dogs lay trapped. Mr. Thompson approached cautiously, kneeling despite the obvious pain it caused his knees. When he saw the dogs, his face transformed, the hardness melting away into something Ethan couldn't quite name. Grief? Rage? Both? "My God," Mr. Thompson whispered. Then, with surprising gentleness, he reached toward the visible dog. "Easy, boy. We're here to help." The dog's tail twitched weakly, the smallest gesture of trust. Mr. Thompson turned to Ethan, his voice suddenly commanding. "I need you to go to my truck. The red toolbox in the back. Bring it here." Ethan ran to the faded blue pickup parked on the street, struggling with the heavy toolbox, but managing to drag it back to where Mr. Thompson now carefully assessed the situation. Working methodically, Mr. Thompson used a crowbar to lift the heavier pieces, while instructing Ethan how to safely remove smaller debris. The old man's hands, weathered and calloused, moved with surprising dexterity, occasionally pausing to comfort the dogs with soft murmurs. "Someone did this deliberately," Mr. Thompson said, his voice tight with controlled anger as they worked. "These chunks are positioned too precisely to be an accident." Ethan felt sick at the thought. Who would hurt dogs on purpose? "There are cruel people in this world, son," Mr. Thompson replied, then fell silent as they focused on the rescue. It took nearly 40 minutes to free all 3 dogs completely. The largest one, a male with a distinctive white patch on his chest, seemed in the best condition, though he had a deep cut along his flank. The second, slightly smaller male had a badly injured paw and possibly broken ribs. The third, a female, was the worst off, barely conscious with labored breathing. Mr. Thompson checked each one carefully, his movements betraying a familiarity with these animals that surprised Ethan. "We need to get them proper care," Mr. Thompson said finally. "But we can't take them to the local vet." "Why not?" Ethan asked, confused. Mr. Thompson's eyes narrowed as he examined the dogs' collars. "Their tags have been deliberately scratched out. Someone went to a lot of trouble to hide who these dogs belong to." He pointed to marks on the metal tags that looked like they'd been attacked with a knife or file. "That's weird," Ethan whispered. "Yes," Mr. Thompson agreed grimly. "It is." They carefully moved the dogs to Mr. Thompson's truck, creating a makeshift bed from an old blanket kept behind the seat. The largest dog, despite his injuries, seemed protective of the others, growling weakly when they were separated too far. "It's like they're a family," Ethan observed, gently stroking the big dog's head. "Or a unit," Mr. Thompson said cryptically. "These aren't just any German shepherds." Ethan was about to ask what he meant when he noticed a car driving slowly past the construction site. The driver, a man in dark sunglasses, seemed to be watching them intently. Mr. Thompson noticed too. "Get in the truck," he ordered quietly. "Now." Ethan climbed into the passenger seat, heart racing as Mr. Thompson started the engine. As they pulled away, Ethan glanced in the side mirror and saw the strange car beginning to turn around. "Mr. Thompson," he said nervously, "that car is following us." The old man checked his rearview mirror, his expression darkening. "Hold on," he said, making a sudden turn down a narrow side street. 2 more quick turns followed until the car was no longer visible behind them. "Who was that?" Ethan asked, his voice small. "I don't know," Mr. Thompson replied, but something in his tone made Ethan wonder if that was entirely true. "But I think we need to be careful about who knows we have these dogs." They drove in tense silence until they reached the outskirts of town, pulling up to a small building set back from the road. A weathered sign read, "Green's Animal Clinic." "Doctor?" "Green's an old friend," Mr. Thompson explained as he parked behind the building. "He won't ask too many questions." The door opened before they could knock, revealing a man about Mr. Thompson's age with kind eyes and a worried expression. "James," he greeted Mr. Thompson, "your call sounded urgent." "It is, Henry," Mr. Thompson replied. "We've got 3 injured German shepherds in need of immediate care, and we need to keep it quiet." Dr. Green's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to Mr. Thompson with an unspoken question. "The boy found them," Mr. Thompson explained, "buried under concrete at the old community center demolition site." Dr. Green's expression hardened. "Bring them in." Together, they carefully carried the dogs inside to a clean examination room. Dr. Green worked quickly, checking vitals and hooking up IV fluids while Mr. Thompson assisted with practiced ease that surprised Ethan. "Were you a vet too?" Ethan asked. A small, sad smile touched Mr. Thompson's lips. "Number. But I worked with dogs like these for many years." Dr. Green looked up sharply at that comment, exchanging a meaningful glance with Mr. Thompson. "What's special about these dogs?" Ethan pressed, feeling like the adults were keeping secrets. Before either could answer, the female dog suddenly seized, her body going rigid. Dr. Green moved with lightning speed, administering an injection while Mr. Thompson held her steady. "She's been poisoned," Dr. Green said grimly as the dog's body relaxed. "Not just injured, all three probably have some level of toxicity." "Poisoned?" Ethan repeated, horrified. "Someone wanted these dogs dead," Mr. Thompson said quietly, and went to extreme lengths to make sure of it. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He moved closer to the largest dog, who, despite his weakened state, gently licked the boy's hand. "I think he likes you," Dr. Green observed, momentarily softening. "Can I name them?" Ethan asked suddenly, "just until we find out who they really belong to?" The two men exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. "I suppose that would be all right, Doctor," Green said carefully. Ethan pointed to the largest dog. "He's Brave," then to the middle-sized male. "He's Shadow." Finally to the female still recovering from the seizure. "And she's Luna." "Good names," Mr. Thompson said quietly. "Strong names." As Dr. Green continued treating the dogs, Ethan noticed something odd. When the veterinarian gently turned Brave's collar to check for any identifying marks, a small metal object fell out from behind the leather, landing with a distinct ping on the floor. All three of them stared at the tiny silver chip that now lay on the examination room floor. "What's that?" Ethan asked, reaching for it. Mr. Thompson's hand shot out, stopping him. "Don't touch it," he warned, his voice suddenly tense. He exchanged another loaded glance with Dr. Green. "Ethan," Mr. Thompson said carefully, "what time does your father get home from work?" 7:30, Ethan replied, suddenly remembering his dad would be worried sick if he wasn't home. "What time is it now?" "Nearly 7, Mr. Thompson said. "We should get you home." "But the dogs," Ethan protested. "We'll be safe with Dr. Green," Mr. Thompson assured him. "We can check on them tomorrow." Dr. Green picked up the mysterious chip with a pair of tweezers, placing it in a small container. "I'll keep this safe," he said meaningfully to Mr. Thompson, who nodded. As they drove Ethan home, the boy couldn't stop thinking about the dogs, the mysterious chip, and the strange car that had followed them. "Mr. Thompson," he said finally, "you know something about those dogs, don't you?" The old man was quiet for a long moment. "I have suspicions," he admitted finally, "but it's better if you don't know too much right now, Ethan. Safer for you." "Safer?" Ethan repeated, a flutter of fear in his stomach. Mr. Thompson pulled up a block from Ethan's house. "Listen to me carefully," he said, turning to face the boy. "You did a brave thing today. Those dogs would have died without you. But I need you to promise me something." "What?" Ethan asked. "Don't tell anyone about the dogs. Not your friends, not your teachers, not even your father, at least not yet." "But why?" Ethan protested. Mr. Thompson's expression was deadly serious. "Because someone went to a lot of trouble to hurt those dogs and hide their identities. Until we know who and why, anyone who knows about them could be in danger." Ethan's eyes widened. "Like in spy movies?" A grim smile touched Mr. Thompson's lips. "Something like that? Can you keep this secret just for a little while?" Ethan nodded solemnly. "I promise." "Good boy, now go straight home. I'll come by tomorrow after school to take you to see the dogs." Ethan slipped out of the truck and hurried home, his mind racing with questions. He made it just as his father's car pulled into the driveway. "Hey, buddy," Jake called, looking relieved to see his son. "Have a good day." Ethan thought about the dogs, about Brave's trusting eyes, about the mysterious chip and Mr. Thompson's warnings. "Just a normal day, Dad," he lied, the first secret he'd ever kept from his father, sitting uncomfortably in his chest. Nothing special happened at all. But as he followed his dad inside, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his discovery had set something big in motion. something dangerous and much bigger than a 5-year-old boy should be involved in. Yet, when he thought of Brave, Shadow, and Luna, he knew he couldn't walk away. Whatever mystery surrounded those dogs, Ethan was now part of it, and somehow he knew his life would never be the same again. The next morning, Ethan could barely focus in kindergarten. Ms. Roberts had to call his name 3 times during circle time when he was lost in thought about Brave, Shadow, and Luna. "Ethan, are you with us today?" she asked, her voice gentle but concerned. "Sorry," he mumbled, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. The secret felt like it was burning inside him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Brave's trusting gaze, felt the weight of the promise he'd made to Mr. Thompson. When the final bell rang, Ethan raced outside, scanning the pickup area for Mr. Thompson's blue truck. His heart sank when he didn't see it. Had the old man forgotten? Or worse, had something happened to the dogs? "Ethan!" His father's voice cut through his thoughts. Jake was waiting by his car, waving. "Come on, buddy. I got off work early today." Ethan's stomach dropped. This wasn't part of the plan. He couldn't visit the dogs if his dad was taking him home, but he couldn't explain without breaking his promise. "Dad, he stammered, trying to think of an excuse. Then he spotted it, Mr. Thompson's truck, pulling up at the far end of the parking lot. Jake followed his gaze. "Isn't that James Thompson? What's he doing here?" Before Ethan could answer, Mr. Thompson approached them. His usual gruff expression softened into something almost friendly. "Afternoon," he greeted Jake. "You must be Ethan's father." Jake nodded, clearly confused. "Jake Miller. Do we know each other?" "James Thompson. I live down the block from Mrs. Wilkins." He extended a weathered hand, which Jake shook automatically. "Your boy has been helping me with a little project. Said he'd come by after school today." Ethan held his breath, amazed at how easily the lie rolled off Mr. Thompson's tongue. "Project?" Jake asked, looking at his son. "This is the first I'm hearing about it." Mr. Thompson chuckled. "Gardening. The boy's got a knack for it. Been helping me plant some new trees. I'm afraid my old back isn't what it used to be." Jake seemed surprised but not suspicious. "Well, that's great. But, Ethan, you should have told me. I took off early so we could go to the batting cages." "I'm sorry, Dad," Ethan said, genuinely upset at disappointing his father. "I forgot." Jake ruffled his son's hair. "No big deal. We can go tomorrow." He turned to Mr. Thompson. "But I'd like to pick him up by dinner time, if that's all right." "Absolutely," Mr. Thompson agreed. "I'll have him home by 6. As Jake drove away, Ethan looked up at Mr. Thompson. "Thanks for not telling my dad." "Sometimes secrets are necessary," Mr. Thompson said quietly. "But I don't like lying to your father. He seems like a good man." "He is," Ethan confirmed, guilt gnawing at him. "The best." "Then we'll tell him the truth," Mr. Thompson decided as they walked to his truck. "When the time is right." The drive to Dr. Green's clinic felt much longer to Ethan today. When they finally arrived, he practically jumped from the truck before it fully stopped. "Easy," Mr. Thompson cautioned. "The dogs are still recovering. They need calm." Dr. Green met them at the back entrance, his expression tired but hopeful. "They made it through the night," he reported. "The female, Luna, you called her, had another seizure, but she's stabilized now." Inside, Ethan was overjoyed to see Brave sitting up in his large kennel, alert and watching the door, as if he'd been waiting for them. When he saw Ethan, his tail thumped weakly against the blankets. "He remembers me!" Ethan exclaimed, rushing over. "Of course he does," Mr. Thompson said softly. "These dogs never forget a friend." Shadow was sleeping in the next kennel, his breathing even but shallow. Luna lay in a separate area, hooked up to an IV, her eyes closed. Her condition was clearly the most serious. "Can I pet Brave?" Ethan asked Dr. Green. The vet nodded, gently. "His wound is stitched, but he's still in pain." Ethan carefully stroked Brave's head, mindful of the bandages covering parts of his body. The dog leaned into his touch, those intelligent eyes never leaving Ethan's face. "I think he's trying to tell me something," Ethan whispered. Mr. Thompson and Dr. Green exchanged glances. "What did you find out?" Mr. Thompson asked the vet in a low voice. Dr. Green motioned them toward his office, where Ethan was surprised to see a laptop open on the desk, something he hadn't noticed yesterday in the rush to help the dogs. "The chip," Dr. Green explained, closing the door behind them. "It's a military-grade data storage device, heavily encrypted." "Military?" Ethan repeated, eyes wide. Like army dogs? Not exactly, Mr. Thompson said carefully, but close. He turned to Dr. Green. Could you access anything? The vet shook his head. Not much, but I did find this. He turned the laptop so they could see a series of numbers and letters on the screen. This code was embedded in a readable section. It's a military identification number. Mr. Thompson stared at the screen, his expression unreadable. I know this format. These aren't just any military dogs. He turned to Ethan with unexpected intensity. You said there was a car following us yesterday. Can you describe it? Ethan closed his eyes, trying to remember. Black, really clean and shiny. The man had sunglasses and a jacket, even though it was hot. Mr. Thompson's jaw tightened. We need to check the other collars. Back in the kennel area, Dr. Green carefully examined Shadow's collar, while Mr. Thompson did the same with Luna's. Both had hidden compartments similar to Brave's. 2 more chips, Dr. Green confirmed, holding up the tiny metal squares with tweezers, identical to the first. Ethan watched as the men hurried back to the office with the new chips. He stayed with Brave, who seemed increasingly agitated, whining softly and trying to stand despite his injuries. What's wrong, boy? Ethan asked, trying to soothe him. Brave's ears pricked forward, his attention fixed on the clinic's small window that faced the parking lot. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He moved to the window, peering out cautiously. The same black car from yesterday was parked across the street. Mr. Thompson, Ethan called urgently, not taking his eyes off the vehicle. He's back. The men rushed in, Mr. Thompson immediately pulling Ethan away from the window. Did he see you? He demanded. I don't think so, Ethan said, his heart racing. The blinds were mostly closed. Dr. Green peered through a tiny gap in the blinds. He's just sitting there, watching the clinic. How did he find us? Ethan whispered. I don't know, Mr. Thompson admitted, his expression grim. But we need to move the dogs. Now. Dr. Green looked alarmed. They're not stable enough for transport, James, especially Luna. We don't have a choice, Mr. Thompson insisted. If that's who I think it is, they're not safe here. None of us are. Ethan felt fear twist in his stomach. Who is he? Instead of answering, Mr. Thompson turned to Dr. Green, is your brother's cabin still up at Miller's Creek? Dr. Green nodded slowly. No one's been there for months, but it's stocked with supplies. Emergency generator, too. Perfect, Mr. Thompson decided. You take Luna in your vehicle. The boy and I will take the other 2 in my truck. We'll use different routes, meet there in 3 hours. Ethan's eyes widened. But my dad? We'll call him from the road, Mr. Thompson assured him. Tell him you're staying at my place for dinner. By morning, we'll figure this out. Dr. Green began disconnecting Luna's 4, replacing it with a portable unit. I'll need to pack medications, bandages. 10 minutes, Mr. Thompson said firmly. That's all we can risk. They worked quickly, moving with an urgency that terrified and thrilled Ethan in equal measure. This was like the spy movies his dad never let him watch, except it was real, and somehow he was right in the middle of it. Ethan, help me with Brave, Mr. Thompson instructed. He seems to trust you most. Together, they coaxed the injured dog into a large crate in the back of Mr. Thompson's truck, covered with blankets to hide him from view. Shadow, still heavily sedated, was easier to move. Dr. Green finished preparing Luna, his medical bag bulging with supplies. I'll go first, he said. The back road, through the old mill site. If I'm followed, I'll lead them away from the cabin. Mr. Thompson nodded grimly. Be careful, Henry. You too, old friend. The men clasped hands briefly, a lifetime of unspoken history passing between them. As Dr. Green slipped out the back with Luna, Mr. Thompson turned to Ethan. We'll wait 5 minutes, then leave through the front. Walk normally to the truck. If that man is watching, we don't want to alert him. What if he follows us? Ethan asked, his voice small. Then we lose him, Mr. Thompson said simply, checking a handgun that Ethan hadn't realized he was carrying. Seeing Ethan's wide eyes, he added, just a precaution. I hope we won't need it. Those 5 minutes felt like the longest of Ethan's life. When it was time, Mr. Thompson calmly walked him out the front door, locking it behind them as if closing up for the day. They strolled to the truck unhurriedly, though Ethan's pulse raced with each step. Don't look at the car, Mr. Thompson murmured. Just get in the truck like normal. Ethan climbed into the passenger seat, fighting the urge to glance across the street. Through the side mirror, he could see the black car, its engine now running. Mr. Thompson started the truck and pulled away at a casual pace. "Is he following?" he asked, eyes on the road. Ethan checked the mirror. "Yes," he whispered. "He's pulling out now." "Hold on," Mr. Thompson said, his voice suddenly steely. Without warning, he made a sharp turn into a narrow alley, then another, emerging onto a busy street where he accelerated, weaving through traffic with surprising skill. "Call your dad," he instructed, handing Ethan a cell phone. "Tell him you'll be at my house for dinner, that I'm teaching you about gardening." Ethan's hands trembled as he dialed. When his father answered, he tried to sound normal, repeating Mr. Thompson's cover story. Jake seemed disappointed but not suspicious, making Ethan promise to be home by 8 for homework. "He believed me," Ethan reported as he hung up, guilt and exhilaration battling inside him. "Good boy," Mr. Thompson said, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. "I think we've lost him for now." They drove in tense silence for nearly an hour, taking back roads that wound through dense forest. Occasionally, Mr. Thompson would stop, listening intently before continuing. In the back, Brave whined softly, as if sensing the danger. "Mr. Thompson," Ethan ventured finally, "what kind of dogs are they really? Why does that man want them?" The old man was quiet for so long that Ethan thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he sighed. "They're not just any German shepherds. They're specially trained military dogs, not for regular army work, for something more classified." "Like spy dogs?" Ethan asked, eyes wide. A small smile touched Mr. Thompson's lips. "Something like that. The chips in their collars probably contain sensitive information some people would kill to get." Ethan shivered at the word kill. "Are you a spy too?" "No," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "Not anymore. I retired from government work a long time ago, but I recognize operations like this." He glanced at Ethan. "I never thought I'd be pulled back in, especially not by a brave little boy and 3 injured dogs." "Is that why you know so much about the dogs? Because you worked with them before?" Mr. Thompson nodded. "I trained dogs like these for 20 years. Special operations, intelligence gathering, security details. These 3, they're special. Even more highly trained than the ones I worked with." A thought suddenly struck Ethan. "Is that why you live alone? Because you were a spy?" Something like pain flashed across Mr. Thompson's face. "I had a family once, a wife, a daughter, but my work, it wasn't safe for them. After a while, it was better for us to be apart." "That's sad," Ethan said softly. "Yes," Mr. Thompson agreed, his voice rough. "It is." They lapsed into silence again until Mr. Thompson turned onto a nearly invisible dirt track that wound deeper into the forest. After bumping along for about 10 minutes, a small cabin came into view, nestled among tall pines. Dr. Green's car was already parked outside. "We made it," Mr. Thompson said, relief evident in his voice. Inside the cabin, Dr. Green had set up a makeshift veterinary station in the main room. Luna lay on a table, still unconscious but stable. The vet looked up as they entered, his expression grim. "Any trouble?" he asked. "Lost a tail," Mr. Thompson reported. "But they know about the clinic now. It won't take them long to start searching the area." They carefully brought Brave and Shadow inside, settling them on blankets near the fireplace. Despite his injuries, Brave immediately dragged himself closer to Luna, as if continuing to protect her. "Their loyalty is remarkable," Dr. Green observed, "even in this condition." "It's how they're trained," Mr. Thompson said, watching the dogs with something like respect. "They never abandon their own." While Dr. Green tended to the dogs, Mr. Thompson set about securing the cabin, checking locks and sightlines with practiced efficiency. Ethan helped where he could, bringing water for the dogs and assisting Dr. Green with changing bandages. As evening approached, Mr. Thompson prepared a simple meal from the cabin's stored supplies. They ate in relative silence, the weight of their situation hanging over them. After dinner, while Dr. Green dozed in an armchair, exhausted from the day's events, Mr. Thompson and Ethan sat by the dogs, keeping watch. "Mr. Thompson," Ethan said quietly, "what happens now?" The old man sighed, absently stroking Shadow's head. "I'm working on that. First, we need to understand what's on those chips. Then we need to find out who tried to kill these dogs and why. And then we get the dogs to the right people, people who can protect them and the information they carry. Ethan looked down at Brave, who had finally fallen into a peaceful sleep, his large head resting against the boy's leg. "Will I ever see them again after that?" Mr. Thompson's expression softened. "I don't know, son, but these dogs won't forget you. I promise you that." As darkness fell outside, the cabin grew quiet except for the occasional crackle of the fire and the soft breathing of the sleeping dogs. Ethan fought to keep his eyes open, determined to stay awake and help keep watch. Mr. Thompson noticed his struggle and smiled. "Get some rest, Ethan. I'll wake you if anything happens." Reluctantly, Ethan stretched out on the couch, Brave still leaning against him. Despite his determination to stay alert, exhaustion soon pulled him into sleep. He was awakened suddenly by Brave's low growl. Opening his eyes, Ethan saw the dog staring intently at the cabin door, ears forward, body tense despite his injuries. Mr. Thompson was already on his feet, gun in hand. Dr. Green stood frozen by the window, peering cautiously through the curtains. "Someone's out there," Dr. Green whispered, "moving through the trees." The growl in Brave's throat grew louder. Shadow, now awake, joined in, while Luna remained unconscious on her makeshift bed. "Ethan," Mr. Thompson said quietly, "go to the back room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I call for you." Fear gripped Ethan's heart, but he moved to obey. As he reached the hallway, Brave struggled to his feet, limping painfully to follow him. "Let him go with the boy," Dr. Green suggested. "He seems determined to protect him." Mr. Thompson nodded, and Ethan helped Brave down the short hallway to a small bedroom. Once inside, he locked the door as instructed, then sat on the floor beside Brave, who positioned himself between Ethan and the door despite his weakened state. "Good boy," Ethan whispered, his arms around the dog's neck. "We'll be okay." But as he heard footsteps on the cabin's porch and the sound of voices growing louder, Ethan wondered if that was a promise he could keep. "Do you think Brave can protect Ethan from what's coming? Drop your theories below." Ethan pressed his ear against the bedroom door, straining to hear what was happening. Brave remained alert beside him, a low rumble still vibrating in the dog's chest despite his injuries. The voices in the main room were muffled, but Ethan could tell there were at least two strangers speaking with Mr. Thompson and Dr. Green. Though he couldn't make out exact words, the tone sounded tense, confrontational. Suddenly there was a crash, like furniture being overturned, followed by a shout. Brave's growl deepened, his body tensing despite the obvious pain it caused him. "It's okay," Ethan whispered, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Mr. Thompson will handle it." The sound of a gunshot made Ethan jump. Brave lunged forward, scratching at the door, desperate to get out despite his injuries. The loyal dog was trying to join the fight, to protect his pack. "No, Brave!" Ethan grabbed the dog's collar, struggling to hold him back. "You're hurt! You can't help them!" More shouting. Another crash. Then silence. A silence more frightening than the chaos that preceded it. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest as he heard footsteps approaching the bedroom door. Brave positioned himself in front of the boy, hackles raised, ready to defend him despite his weakened state. A soft knock came at the door. "Ethan?" Mr. Thompson's voice, strained but steady. "It's safe. You can come out now." Still, Brave remained tense, unconvinced. Ethan hesitated. "Mr. Thompson, is that really you?" "Yes, son. The situation is under control, but we need to move quickly." Ethan unlocked the door cautiously. Brave limped forward first, sniffing the air. When he caught Mr. Thompson's scent, the dog relaxed slightly, though he remained vigilant. The scene in the main room made Ethan gasp. Furniture was overturned, a window broken. Dr. Green was pressing a cloth to a bleeding cut on his forehead. But what caught Ethan's attention most were the two men, strangers, sitting tied to chairs in the center of the room. One wore a dark suit, the other military-style clothing. Both glared at Mr. Thompson with undisguised hatred. "Who are they?" Ethan whispered. "Trouble," Mr. Thompson replied grimly. He guided Ethan away from the men, speaking quietly. "They're after the dogs and the information on those chips. They tracked us here faster than I expected." "Who sent them?" Ethan asked, eyeing the bound men. "That's what we're going to find out." Mr. Thompson turned to Dr. Green. "How's Luna?" "Stable, thankfully," the vet reported. The commotion didn't disturb her too much. Mr. Thompson nodded, then addressed the bound men. "Last chance to tell us who you're working for." The man in the suit smirked. "You're in over your head, old man. You have no idea what those dogs are carrying." "Actually, I do," Mr. Thompson replied calmly. "And I know exactly how valuable it is. What I don't know is who sent you to recover it." The military-looking man spat on the floor. "We don't answer to retirees and vets. Where's the third chip?" Mr. Thompson's expression remained neutral, but Ethan noticed his eyes narrow slightly. "What makes you think there's a third?" The men exchanged glances, and Ethan realized they'd revealed something unintentionally. "Let's try a different approach," Mr. Thompson said, taking a seat across from them. "I know those dogs were part of Operation Blacklight. I know they were carrying classified intel. What I don't know is why someone tried to bury them alive instead of using proper extraction protocols." The suited man's eyes widened slightly at the mention of Blacklight, confirming Mr. Thompson's guess. "You're not authorized," the military man began. "Authorization code November Echo Delta 719, Mr. Thompson interrupted. "Check it if you don't believe me." Something changed in the men's expressions, surprise followed by uncertainty. The suited man studied Mr. Thompson more carefully. "You're Thompson? James Thompson? Intel said you were dead." A cold smile touched Mr. Thompson's lips. "Intel was wrong. Now, who sent you?" Before either man could answer, Luna suddenly let out a pained whimper from her makeshift bed. Dr. Green rushed to her side. "She's seizing again!" While the doctor tended to Luna, Mr. Thompson kept his gun trained on the captives. Ethan moved to comfort Brave and Shadow, who were clearly distressed by Luna's condition. "She's not going to make it," the military man said flatly. "The poison was designed to be lethal." Ethan's head snapped up. "You poisoned them? Why would you hurt dogs?" The man's eyes shifted uncomfortably under the boy's accusatory stare. "Orders! Whose orders?" Mr. Thompson demanded. "Colonel Holt," the suited man blurted, earning a venomous glare from his companion. "What? The situation's compromised. Holt will know we failed when we don't report in." Mr. Thompson went very still at the mention of the name. "Victor Holt? He's running Blacklight now?" "For the past 3 years," the suited man confirmed. "After you retired." A dark expression crossed Mr. Thompson's face. Holt was always ambitious, but ordering the execution of service animals, that's a new low, even for him. "They're not just animals," the military man snapped. "They're assets, and they were compromised." "How?" Mr. Thompson demanded. The men fell silent again. Dr. Green looked up from Luna, his expression grave. "I've stabilized her, but she's weak. Whatever they used is aggressive. I need more supplies than what I have here." Mr. Thompson nodded, making a decision. "We need to move. They'll have backup coming." He glanced at his watch. "Ethan, your father will be expecting you home soon. I need to get you back." "But the dogs," Ethan protested. "Will come with us," Mr. Thompson assured him. "All of them, but first, we need information." He turned back to the captives. "What's on the chips that Holt is so desperate to recover?" The suited man hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Evidence of operations that went beyond authorized parameters. People died who weren't supposed to. Civilians." "And the dogs recorded this?" Mr. Thompson asked. "Their tactical vests had embedded cameras. Standard protocol for all Blacklight field operations now. But these 3 units captured something they shouldn't have." "What about the handlers?" Mr. Thompson's voice had a dangerous edge now. The military man looked away. "Collateral damage." Ethan saw rage flash across Mr. Thompson's face, quickly controlled. "So, Holt ordered the dogs poisoned and buried at a demolition site to cover his tracks. Clean and simple." "Until the kid found them," the suited man said, glancing at Ethan. Mr. Thompson checked his watch again. "Henry, pack whatever Luna needs. We're leaving in 5 minutes." He turned to the captives. "As for you two, you can't just leave us here," the military man protested. "Watch me," Mr. Thompson replied coldly. "Local rangers will find you eventually, if you're lucky." The next few minutes were a blur of activity as they loaded the dogs into the vehicles. Luna's condition required doctor. Green to ride with her in the back of his car, monitoring her constantly. Shadow went with them, while Brave, still protective of Ethan, came in Mr. Thompson's truck. As they prepared to leave, Mr. Thompson handed Ethan a small metal object, one of the chips from the dog's collars. "Keep this safe," he instructed. "Don't let anyone see it." "Why me?" Ethan asked, confused. "Because no one would expect a child to be carrying it," Mr. Thompson explained. "And because I trust you." The words filled Ethan with unexpected pride. He carefully tucked the chip into his sock, where it pressed against his ankle. They left the cabin under the cover of darkness, taking a different route than the one they had arrived on. Mr. Thompson drove in tense silence, constantly checking his mirrors for signs of pursuit. "Mr. Thompson," Ethan ventured after a while, "those men said people died. Bad things happened. Is that what's on the chips?" The old man sighed heavily. "It sounds like it. Colonel Holt always pushed boundaries, but if he's crossed the line into illegal operations, this evidence could destroy him. That's why he's so desperate to recover it. Will the dogs be safe once we get the chips to the right people?" Mr. Thompson's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I'll make sure of it." They drove through the night, eventually reaching the outskirts of town near dawn. Mr. Thompson pulled over on a quiet street a few blocks from Ethan's house. "Your father will be worried sick," he said grimly. "We're hours past when I said I'd have you home." Guilt washed over Ethan. He'd been so caught up in the adventure that he'd almost forgotten about his dad. What do we tell him? The truth, Mr. Thompson decided, or at least part of it. He needs to know you're involved in something dangerous, for his own protection. Brave whined softly from the back seat, sensing Ethan's distress. "What about Brave?" Ethan asked, reaching back to stroke the dog's head. "He comes with us," Mr. Thompson said. "All 3 dogs need to stay hidden until I can contact people I trust, people who can protect them and use the evidence properly." As they approached Ethan's house, they saw Jake pacing on the front porch, phone in hand. When he spotted the truck, he ran down the steps, his face a mask of fear and anger. "Ethan!" he shouted as the boy climbed out. "Where have you been?" "I've been calling the police, searching everywhere." "Dad, I'm sorry," Ethan began, tears filling his eyes at the sight of his father's distress. Mr. Thompson stepped out of the truck. "Mr. Miller, this is my fault. I need to explain, but not out here. Is it all right if we go inside?" Jake looked like he wanted to punch the old man, but instead nodded curtly, wrapping a protective arm around Ethan as they walked inside. Once in the living room, Mr. Thompson told a carefully edited version of events, finding injured dogs, taking them to a vet, discovering they were special military animals that someone was trying to harm. He left out the gunfire, the chips, and the bound men at the cabin, but made it clear that the situation was serious. "So, you kept my son out all night, in potential danger, without calling me?" Jake's voice was tight with controlled fury. "I made a judgment call," Mr. Thompson admitted. "The wrong one, clearly. I should have brought him home and explained this to you immediately. I apologize." Jake ran a hand through his hair, trying to process everything. "And these dangerous people? They might come looking for the dogs here?" "It's possible," Mr. Thompson confirmed. "Which is why I think you and Ethan should come with me, just for a few days, until I can get the dogs somewhere safe. Leave our home, our lives, because of some dogs?" Jake looked incredulous. "Dad," Ethan said quietly, "Brave saved me. When those men came to the cabin, he was ready to protect me even though he's hurt. They're special dogs. And they have proof of bad things that happened." Jake looked from his son to Mr. Thompson, conflict evident on his face. "You're sure we're in danger if we stay?" "I can't guarantee your safety here," Mr. Thompson said honestly. "Not when Colonel Holt realizes his men failed to recover the dogs." A long silence followed as Jake considered their options. Finally, he nodded. "We'll need to pack some things. Where are we going?" "I have a place," Mr. Thompson said. "Off the grid. We'll rendezvous with Doctor, Green, and the other dogs there." While Jake packed essentials for himself and Ethan, Mr. Thompson brought Brave inside. The dog, despite his injuries, immediately began a cautious inspection of the house, limping from room to room as if checking for threats. "He's still protecting us?" Ethan observed, watching the dog with admiration. "That's what he was trained for," Mr. Thompson replied. "These aren't ordinary military dogs, Ethan. They're specifically bred and trained for intelligence operations. Their ability to assess situations, remember faces, even understand complex commands goes beyond what most people think dogs are capable of." Brave returned to Ethan's side, leaning against the boy's leg in what seemed like reassurance. Jake returned with 2 small bags. "This is crazy," he muttered, "running from our home because of military dogs." "Not just dogs," Mr. Thompson corrected. "Evidence. Evidence that could bring down powerful people who've done terrible things." They loaded into Mr. Thompson's truck, Brave sitting protectively between Ethan and Jake in the back seat. As they pulled away from the house, Ethan noticed a black SUV slowly turning onto their street. "Mr. Thompson," he said urgently, "I think they found us." The old man checked his mirror, his expression darkening. "Hold on." He accelerated suddenly, taking a sharp turn that threw them against their seatbelts. The SUV sped up, clearly in pursuit. "What the hell?" Jake exclaimed, instinctively pulling Ethan closer to him. "Colonel Holt's men," Mr. Thompson explained grimly, executing another sharp turn. "They move fast," Brave growled, his attention fixed on the vehicle behind them. What followed was a tense chase through the early morning streets. Mr. Thompson drove with remarkable skill, using back alleys and side streets to try to lose their pursuers. But the black SUV stayed with them, gradually closing the distance. "They're getting closer," Jake warned, looking back. Mr. Thompson's face was set in grim determination. "There's a service road up ahead that cuts through the state forest. If we can reach it, we might lose them in the trees." As they approached the turnoff, the SUV suddenly accelerated, pulling alongside them. Ethan caught a glimpse of the driver, a hard-faced man with cold eyes who looked directly at him before swerving toward their truck. The impact sent them skidding toward the ditch. Mr. Thompson fought the wheel, barely keeping them on the road. Brave barked furiously, his protective instincts in full force despite his weakened state. "Hold on!" Mr. Thompson shouted as he made a desperate turn onto the service road. The truck bounced violently on the uneven surface, branches scraping against the windows as they plunged into the dense forest. The SUV followed, but its larger size made navigating the narrow track more difficult. Mr. Thompson pressed this advantage, pushing the truck faster despite the dangerous conditions. "There's a ranger station about 2 miles in," he told them. "If we can reach it—" He never finished the sentence. A deafening crack split the air as a bullet shattered the back window. Jake threw himself over Ethan, shielding his son with his body. "They're shooting at us!" he yelled in disbelief. "Told you Holt was desperate," Mr. Thompson replied, his voice unnaturally calm as he swerved to make them a harder target. Brave's barking turned to snarls, the injured dog somehow finding strength in the crisis. When another shot came, narrowly missing Jake's shoulder, Brave lunged into the back of the truck, positioning himself in the broken window, directly in the line of fire. "Brave, no!" Ethan cried, reaching for the dog. The next bullet didn't miss. Brave yelped in pain as it struck him, but he held his position, a living shield between the gunman and the humans he was protecting. "He's been hit!" Ethan sobbed, seeing blood darkening the dog's already bandaged body. The ranger station appeared ahead, a small wooden building with a radio antenna on top. Mr. Thompson skidded to a stop beside it, throwing open his door. "Inside! Now!" he ordered, pulling his own gun from his jacket. Jake carried Ethan, running toward the building, while Mr. Thompson provided covering fire. Brave, despite his new wound, limped after them, refusing to abandon his protective duty. They burst into the station, finding it empty but equipped with a radio and first aid supplies. Mr. Thompson barricaded the door behind them, while Jake searched for something to treat Brave's wound. "How badly is he hurt?" Ethan asked tearfully, kneeling beside the brave dog. Jake examined the injury with gentle hands. "The bullet grazed his shoulder. It's bleeding, but I don't think it hit anything vital." Outside, they could hear car doors slamming, footsteps approaching. "3 of them, at least," Mr. Thompson reported, peering through a window. He turned to Jake. "There's a basement access behind the counter. Take Ethan and Brave down there." "What about you?" Jake demanded. "I'll hold them off," Mr. Thompson said simply. "Buy you time to escape through the basement's emergency exit. It leads to a trail that will take you to the highway." "You'll be killed," Jake protested. A small, sad smile touched Mr. Thompson's lips. "Maybe. But those dogs revealed the truth about Holt's operations for a reason. That truth deserves to come out." He looked at Ethan. "The chip, son. Keep it safe. Get it to the authorities." Before Ethan could respond, the windows exploded inward as the attackers opened fire. Mr. Thompson pushed them toward the counter. "Go!" Now, Jake lifted the counter's access panel, revealing a narrow staircase. He helped Brave down first, then Ethan, taking one last look at Mr. Thompson, who had positioned himself by the window, gun ready. "Thank you," Jake said simply. Mr. Thompson nodded. "Get my dogs to safety, all of them." As they descended into the basement, the sound of gunfire erupted above them. Ethan clutched Brave's collar, tears streaming down his face as he realized Mr. Thompson was sacrificing himself for them, for the truth. The basement emergency exit led to a narrow tunnel that emerged in the forest 50 yards from the station. As they stumbled out into the morning light, the gunfire behind them suddenly intensified, then stopped altogether, leaving an eerie silence. "Is Mr. Thompson ... Ethan couldn't finish the question. Jake pulled his son close. "I don't know, buddy, but we need to keep moving. For him, for Brave." The injured dog limped alongside them, his loyalty unwavering despite his wounds. The chip pressed against Ethan's ankle with each step, a small object carrying a heavy burden of truth. As they made their way through the forest, a single gunshot echoed in the distance, making them freeze momentarily. Then silence again. "Dad," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm scared." Jake squeezed his son's shoulder. "I know, but Mr. Thompson trusted us with something important. We can't let him down." Brave suddenly lifted his head, ears alert. A moment later, they heard it too, the distant sound of vehicles on what must be the highway. "That's our way out," Jake said, picking up the pace despite Brave's injuries slowing them down. But as they approached the tree line, Ethan spotted something that made his blood run cold. A tall man in a military uniform stood watching the forest from beside a parked Jeep on the highway. Even from a distance, his calculating eyes and rigid posture radiated authority and menace. "Dad," Ethan whispered, "I think that's him. Colonel Holt. Would Mr. Thompson survive? Can anyone stop the ruthless Colonel Holt? Tell us what you think happens next." Jake pulled Ethan back into the cover of the trees, his heart racing. "Are you sure that's him?" he whispered, eyeing the military man by the Jeep. "I don't know," Ethan admitted, "but he looks important, and mean." Brave growled softly, his eyes fixed on the distant figure. Even injured and weakened, the dog's instincts remained sharp, and he clearly sensed danger. "We can't risk it," Jake decided, scanning their surroundings. There must be another way to the highway. They retreated deeper into the forest, moving parallel to the road, but staying hidden among the trees. Brave limped alongside them, his breathing labored but determined. Fresh blood stained his bandages, a testament to his newest wound received while protecting Ethan. "Dad," Ethan said quietly as they walked, "Brave needs a doctor. He's hurt really bad." Jake looked down at the dog with newfound respect. Just hours ago, he'd thought of Brave as just an animal, a reason they'd been dragged into danger. Now, seeing the dog's unwavering loyalty despite his injuries, Jake understood why his son had risked so much to save him. "We'll get him help," Jake promised, "as soon as we're safe." They continued for nearly an hour, the sound of the highway growing fainter as they were forced to detour around steep ravines and dense underbrush. Ethan's steps grew slower, exhaustion from the long night and emotional stress taking its toll. "Need a break, buddy?" Jake asked, noticing his son's fatigue. Ethan shook his head stubbornly. "Brave isn't stopping, neither am I." But moments later, Brave suddenly halted, his ears perked forward. A low warning growl rumbled in his chest. "Someone's coming," Jake whispered, pulling Ethan behind a large tree. Through the foliage, they spotted two men in tactical gear moving through the forest, weapons ready. Colonel Holt's men, searching for them? Jake's mind raced. They couldn't outrun them, not with Ethan's exhaustion and Brave's injuries. Fighting wasn't an option either. They were trapped. "Ethan," he whispered, making a desperate decision. "Give me the chip." His son's eyes widened. "But Mr. Thompson said—" "I know, but those men are looking for it. If they find us, they'll search you first thing." Jake held out his hand. "Trust me, son?" Reluctantly, Ethan pulled the tiny metal chip from his sock and handed it to his father. Jake quickly tucked it into a small tear in Brave's bandage, hiding it within the blood-soaked gauze. The dog watched him with intelligent eyes, as if understanding the importance of what Jake had just done. "If we get separated," Jake whispered to Ethan, "follow Brave. He'll protect you." The search team was getting closer. Jake could hear their footsteps now, the crackle of their radios. "We need a distraction," he murmured, looking around desperately. As if in answer, the forest suddenly erupted with the sound of gunfire, not close to them, but in the direction of the ranger station. The search team immediately changed direction, heading toward the commotion. "That's our chance," Jake said, grabbing Ethan's hand. "Run!" They moved as quickly as Brave's injuries would allow, heading away from the gunfire and search team. After several minutes of frantic movement, they stumbled upon an unexpected sight, a dirt road with an old pickup truck parked alongside it. "Stay hidden," Jake ordered, approaching the vehicle cautiously. The truck appeared abandoned, its driver's door hanging open. Keys dangled from the ignition. A half-eaten sandwich on the seat suggested its owner had left in a hurry, perhaps a park ranger responding to the commotion at the station. "It's our lucky day," Jake muttered, gesturing for Ethan and Brave to come quickly. They climbed in, Brave settling painfully in the back seat. Jake started the engine, wincing at how loud it sounded in the quiet forest. "Hold on," he told Ethan as he accelerated down the dirt road. "This might get bumpy." The road eventually connected to a paved county highway. Not the main road where they'd seen Colonel Holt, but a smaller route that might let them avoid the military blockades likely being established. "Where are we going, Dad?" Ethan asked, his small face etched with worry. Jake realized he had no idea. They couldn't go home. That would be the first place Holt's men would look. They needed somewhere safe, somewhere to regroup and get help for Brave. "Dr. Green," he said suddenly, remembering the veterinarian. "Mr. Thompson said they were meeting at another location. Did he ever mention where?" Ethan scrunched his face in concentration. "He said something about a farm. His sister's farm, I think. But I don't know where it is." "We'll find it," Jake assured him, though he had no idea how. They drove in tense silence for nearly 20 minutes before Jake spotted a small gas station ahead. "We need to make a call, find out where Dr. Green is, and Brave needs water and first aid supplies." The elderly clerk behind the counter barely glanced up as they entered, too engrossed in his newspaper to notice Brave's condition or their disheveled appearance. Jake purchased bandages, antiseptic, bottled water, and food while Ethan used the restroom. "Phone's out back," the clerk mumbled when Jake asked, pointing to an ancient payphone near the bathrooms. Jake dialed the number for Dr. Green's clinic, praying someone would answer despite the early hour. After several rings, a tired female voice answered. "Green Veterinary Clinic." "This is Jake Miller," he said urgently. "I need to reach Dr. Green. It's an emergency regarding 3 German shepherds." A long pause followed. Then, "Hold one moment, please." The line clicked several times before Dr. Green himself came on. "Mr. Miller, where are you? Is Ethan safe?" Relief flooded through Jake. "Yes, he's with me. And Brave. But we're in trouble. Mr. Thompson?" He stayed behind at a ranger station. There was gunfire. "Dear God," Dr. Green murmured. "And the other dogs?" "I don't know. We got separated. Brave is injured again. He took a bullet protecting us." Jake's voice cracked slightly. "We need somewhere safe. Ethan mentioned your sister's farm?" "Yes, that's where I am now with Shadow and Luna. Take Highway 16 north, then Route 43 east for about 12 miles. Look for a red mailbox shaped like a barn, turn there, and follow the dirt road to the end." Jake committed the directions to memory. "We'll be there as soon as possible, but we might be followed." "I understand, Doctor," Green said grimly. "We'll be ready." As they returned to the truck with their supplies, Jake noticed Ethan had gone very quiet, his face pale and drawn. "You okay, buddy?" he asked, helping Brave into the back seat. "What if Mr. Thompson is dead?" Ethan whispered, tears filling his eyes. "He stayed behind because of us." Jake pulled his son into a tight hug. "Mr. Thompson made his own choice, Ethan, a brave choice. The best way to honor that is to make sure what he fought for wasn't in vain." They cleaned and rebandaged Brave's wounds as best they could before continuing their journey. The dog accepted their amateur ministrations with stoic patience, his intelligent eyes never leaving Ethan's face. Following Dr. Green's directions, they eventually found the red barn-shaped mailbox and turned onto a long dirt driveway that wound through fields of corn toward a distant farmhouse. Dr. Green himself came out to meet them as they pulled up, relief evident on his tired face. "Thank God you made it," he said, helping Brave from the truck. "Come inside quickly." The farmhouse was a large 2-story structure with peeling white paint and a wraparound porch. Inside, they found a woman in her 60s, Dr. Green's sister, Martha, preparing food in the kitchen while Shadow and Luna rested on blankets in the living room. Luna looked marginally better than when Ethan had last seen her, though still hooked to an IV. Shadow rose shakily when they entered, approaching Brave with clear concern, sniffing his new injuries. The dogs seem to understand everything that's happening, Martha observed, bringing coffee for Jake and hot chocolate for Ethan. Never seen anything like it. They're special, Dr. Green explained as he examined Brave's gunshot wound. Military training beyond anything civilian dogs receive. And they're in danger because of what they saw, Jake added, accepting the steaming mug gratefully. What they recorded. Dr. Green nodded grimly. The chips contain video footage from their tactical vests. According to what you've told me, it shows Colonel Holt's unit engaging in unauthorized operations. Civilian casualties. War crimes, Martha said bluntly, her weathered face hardening. My husband was military for 30 years. He always said Holt was dangerous, ambitious, without morals. We have one chip, Jake revealed, carefully extracting it from Brave's bandage. Mr. Thompson gave it to Ethan for safekeeping. Dr. Green took the tiny device, examining it carefully. This could bring Holt down, but only if we can get it to the right people Holt doesn't control. Who can we trust? Jake asked. Before Dr. Green could answer, the sound of tires on gravel made them all freeze. Martha moved swiftly to the window, peering through the curtains. Black SUV, she reported, her voice steady despite the danger. 2 men getting out, military types. How did they find us? Jake whispered, instinctively moving toward Ethan. Doesn't matter now, Martha said, reaching into a cabinet and pulling out a shotgun. Henry, get them to the cellar. Dr. Green led Jake, Ethan, and the dogs through the kitchen to a heavy door. Beyond it, steep stairs descended into darkness. The cellar has a tunnel, he explained hastily. Prohibition era. It comes out in the old barn about a quarter mile away. You're not coming? Jake asked as Ethan helped the dogs down the stairs. Can't leave my sister, Dr. Green said simply. Besides, they might just be looking for directions. No reason to think they know you're here. The doubt in his voice was clear, but Jake nodded, respecting the man's decision to stand by his family. Thank you for everything. Get the chip to safety, Dr. Green replied. It's what James would want. The cellar door closed behind them, plunging them into darkness broken only by the beam of a flashlight Dr. Green had pressed into Jake's hand. They made their way carefully through a space that smelled of earth and old preserves, the 3 dogs moving with them despite their injuries. Dad, Ethan whispered, I hear voices upstairs. Jake strained to listen. The sound was muffled, but he could make out Martha's firm denial that she'd seen anyone matching their description, followed by male voices growing increasingly insistent. Keep moving, Jake urged, guiding them toward a narrow passage at the far end of the cellar. The tunnel was low-ceilinged and damp, forcing Jake to crouch as they progressed. Behind them, the voices above grew louder, more threatening. Then came a sound that made Jake's blood run cold, the distinctive crack of a gunshot, followed by a woman's scream. Dad! Ethan gasped. Keep going, Jake ordered, his voice tight. We can't help them if we're caught too. The tunnel seemed endless, the air growing thicker and harder to breathe. Brave led the way now, his military training evident in how he scouted ahead, despite his injuries. Shadow helped Luna, the 2 dogs somehow communicating in a way that transcended human understanding. Finally, they reached another set of stairs, these leading up to a trap door. Jake pushed it open cautiously, revealing the interior of an old barn, dusty shafts of sunlight streaming through the dilapidated walls. We made it, Ethan breathed. Not yet, Jake corrected, helping the dogs up. We still need to... The barn door crashed open. Framed in the sudden flood of light stood Colonel Holt himself, tall, imposing, his cold eyes taking in the scene with calculating precision. Behind him, 2 armed men raised their weapons. Mr. Miller, Holt said, his voice smooth and controlled. And young Ethan, you've led us on quite a chase. Jake pushed Ethan behind him protectively. How did you find us? A thin smile crossed Holt's face. Your friend Mr. Thompson was quite helpful after the proper persuasion. Ethan gasped. You heard him. He'll recover, Holt said dismissively. Eventually? Now, I believe you have something that belongs to me." All three dogs growled in unison, positioning themselves between the humans and Colonel Holt. Even in their weakened state, they presented a formidable barrier. "Loyal to the end," Holt observed coldly. "Pity. They were excellent assets before they were compromised." He nodded to one of his men. "Put them down, all three, then search the boy and his father." The man raised his weapon, aiming at Brave. "No!" Ethan screamed, throwing himself forward. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. As the gunman fired, Brave lunged upward, taking the bullet meant for Ethan. At the same moment, the barn's hayloft erupted with gunfire, but not from Holt's men. Mr. Thompson, bloodied but very much alive, fired from above, his shots precise and deadly. Holt's men fell before they could react, while Holt himself dove for cover. "Run!" Mr. Thompson shouted. "The back of the barn! Now!" Jake grabbed Ethan, who was kneeling beside Brave. The dog lay motionless, blood pooling beneath him. "Brave!" Ethan sobbed. "Dad, we can't leave him." In that moment of hesitation, Colonel Holt emerged from behind a stack of hay bales, a pistol aimed directly at them. His face was contorted with rage and desperation. "The chip," he demanded. "Give it to me now, or the boy dies." Time seemed to stop. Jake looked from Holt to his son, to Mr. Thompson, who had his rifle trained on the colonel, but couldn't risk a shot with Ethan in the line of fire. Then, a blur of motion. Shadow, summoning his remaining strength, launched himself at Holt from behind a tractor. The unexpected attack caused Holt's shot to go wild, the bullet splintering wood above Ethan's head. Mr. Thompson didn't waste the opportunity. His shot caught Holt in the shoulder, spinning the man around and dropping him to his knees. "Go!" Mr. Thompson yelled again. "I've got a car waiting out back." Jake lifted Brave. The dog was heavy, but still breathing, barely, while Ethan helped Luna. Shadow, though injured from his attack on Holt, managed to follow under his own power. They burst through the barn's back door to find Dr. Green waiting in a battered pickup truck, his forehead bleeding but his eyes alert. "Martha?" Jake asked as they loaded the dogs. "Alive," Dr. Green confirmed grimly. "They shot to scare, not kill. She's already called the sheriff." More gunfire erupted from inside the barn as they climbed into the truck. Mr. Thompson appeared moments later, backing through the door while still exchanging shots with Holt. "Go!" he shouted to Dr. Green. "Get them out of here. I'll hold him off." "James, no!" Dr. Green protested. "The chip," Mr. Thompson insisted. "Get it to General Harkins at Fort Bennett. No one else. He'll know what to do." He fired again into the barn. "Go now. This ends today, one way or another." Dr. Green hesitated only a moment before gunning the engine. As they sped away, Ethan looked back to see Mr. Thompson advancing into the barn, determined to finish what had started with 3 injured dogs buried under rubble. "Will he be okay?" Ethan asked, tears streaming down his face. No one answered. Instead, Jake held his son close while Dr. Green drove with grim determination. In the back, the 3 dogs lay together, Luna and Shadow flanking Brave, as if lending him their strength. "Brave saved me," Ethan whispered, reaching back to stroke the dog's head. "He took the bullet for me." "He's still fighting," Dr. Green assured him. "They all are. These dogs, they're something special." They drove in tense silence until they reached the main highway. Instead of turning toward town, Dr. Green headed in the opposite direction. "Fort Bennett is about 2 hours north," he explained. "If we can get there, get the chip to General Harkins." "What about the sheriff?" Jake asked. "Martha called him, right?" "Local law enforcement won't be enough against Holt," Dr. Green said grimly. "We need military authority to take him down properly." As they drove, Jake tried to process everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. His ordinary life with Ethan had been completely upended by the discovery of 3 injured dogs. Dogs that now lay fighting for their lives because they'd been loyal to the end, protecting humans they'd only just met. "Dad," Ethan said suddenly, his voice small but steady. "Brave is trying to tell me something." Jake turned to see his son leaning over the seat, his hand on Brave's head. The dog's eyes were open, his gaze fixed on Ethan with unmistakable intelligence. "He keeps looking at his collar," Ethan insisted, "like there's something there." Dr. Green glanced in the rearview mirror. "Check it. These dogs were specially trained to hide information in multiple locations." With careful fingers, Ethan examined Brave's collar, finding a tiny seam that wasn't visible to casual inspection. When he pressed it, a small compartment opened, revealing yet another chip, identical to the one they'd already found. "Another one?" Jake whispered in disbelief. "Backup protocol," Dr. Green explained. "Each dog carried the same data, encrypted differently. You need all three to access the complete file." "But we only have two," Ethan realized. "The third one was with Luna's collar. You gave it to Mr. Thompson, didn't you?" Dr. Green nodded grimly. "He has it, and now he's facing Holt alone." The weight of this revelation hung heavy in the truck as they continued toward Fort Bennett. Behind them, smoke began to rise in the distance. The barn, likely set ablaze in the struggle between Mr. Thompson and Colonel Holt. "Will Mr. Thompson find us?" Ethan asked, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Will he be okay?" Jake wished he could lie, offer empty reassurances. Instead, he simply held his son closer. "Mr. Thompson is a brave man, Ethan. Like brave. Sometimes the bravest people make the biggest sacrifices." In the back of the truck, Brave's breathing had steadied slightly. His eyes remained open, watchful even in his weakened state. Despite everything, he was still fulfilling his mission, protecting Ethan, protecting the truth. As Fort Bennett appeared on the horizon, they all felt the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. The chips they carried contained evidence that could bring justice for unknown victims, expose corruption at the highest levels, and possibly save countless future lives. All because a curious little boy had followed the sound of whimpering beneath rubble, refusing to walk away from animals in need. "We're almost there, Doctor," Green announced as the military base came into view. "Let's hope General Harkins is the man James thinks he is. What sacrifice will Mr. Thompson make to save them all? And will Brave survive his heroic actions? Let us know your predictions." The security checkpoint at Fort Bennett loomed ahead, armed military personnel watching their approach with professional caution. Dr. Green slowed the truck, hands visible on the steering wheel. "Let me do the talking," he told Jake and Ethan. "Military bases don't take kindly to civilians showing up unannounced, especially with 3 injured military dogs." A young soldier approached, his expression stern. "Base is closed to civilians. State your business." "We need to see General Harkins immediately," Dr. Green replied calmly. "Emergency situation involving Colonel Victor Holt and Operation Blacklight." The soldier's eyes widened slightly at the mention of Blacklight, his posture stiffening. "Wait here," he ordered, stepping away to radio his superior. Ethan leaned against the back seat, checking on the dogs. Brave's condition had stabilized somewhat during the drive, but he remained dangerously weak, his breathing shallow. Luna and Shadow weren't much better, all 3 dogs pushing the limits of their endurance. "They need help soon, Dad," Ethan whispered, his eyes filling with tears. Jake squeezed his son's shoulder. "They'll get it. We made it this far." After what seemed like an eternity, the soldier returned with a senior officer, a woman with captain's bars and an expression that suggested she didn't appreciate surprises. "I'm Captain Reynolds," she introduced herself. "General Harkins is expecting you. Follow the escort vehicle." Jake and Dr. Green exchanged startled glances. "Expecting us?" Dr. Green repeated. "Thompson called ahead," Captain Reynolds explained curtly. "Now move quickly. The medical team is standing by for the K-9s." Relief washed over them. Mr. Thompson was alive. Somehow, he'd escaped Colonel Holt and made contact with General Harkins. They followed a military jeep through the base to a secluded building separate from the main complex. As they pulled up, a team in medical scrubs rushed out with gurneys specially designed for canine patients. "These are the Blacklight dogs?" one of the medics asked, already examining Brave with professional efficiency. "Yes," Dr. Green confirmed. "Multiple traumas, possible poisoning, and gunshot wounds. This one took a bullet meant for the boy less than an hour ago." The team worked quickly, transferring all 3 dogs onto the gurneys and rushing them inside. Ethan tried to follow Brave, but a gentle hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Let them work, son," said a deep voice behind him. They turned to find an imposing man in his 60s wearing general's stars. His face was lined with age and experience, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. "General Harkins," Dr. Green said, extending his hand. "Dr. Green," the general acknowledged, "and you must be Jake and Ethan Miller. Thompson spoke highly of you both." He knelt to Ethan's level. "Especially you, young man. Finding those dogs, staying brave through all of this. That's real courage." Ethan barely heard the praise, his attention still focused on the doors through which Brave had disappeared. "Will they be okay?" General Harkins straightened, his expression softening. "They're receiving the best care the military can provide. These dogs are heroes of the highest order. We don't abandon our heroes." He led them inside to a secure conference room where, to their shock, Mr. Thompson was waiting. The old man looked terrible, his face bruised, arm in a sling, bandages visible beneath his torn shirt, but very much alive. "Mr. Thompson!" Ethan cried, running to him. Thompson managed a pained smile, his good arm encircling the boy briefly. "Told you I'd hold him off," he said, his voice rough. "Holt?" Jake asked. "In custody," General Harkins confirmed. "Military police picked him up about 30 minutes ago, trying to flee the scene of a fire. He's being transported here as we speak." Jake pulled the 2 chips from his pocket. "We have these, 2 of the 3. General Harkins accepted them carefully. "And the 3rd? "I have it," Mr. Thompson said, producing the final chip from his shirt pocket. "Managed to keep it safe, despite Holt's best efforts to persuade me otherwise." Ethan noticed how Mr. Thompson winced slightly as he moved, realizing the extent of what the man had endured to protect them and the evidence. "We'll begin analysis immediately," General Harkins said, placing all 3 chips in a secure container. "In the meantime, you all need medical attention and rest." "Not until I know Brave is okay," Ethan insisted, his small face set with determination. The general studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Understood. I'll have updates brought as soon as they're available." While they waited, military doctors examined their injuries. Jake had minor cuts and bruises. Ethan was physically unharmed, but showing signs of emotional trauma that the doctors said would need careful attention in the coming weeks. Mr. Thompson's injuries were more serious. 3 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and various wounds that suggested he'd been subjected to rough interrogation techniques. "You should be in a hospital bed," Dr. Green told his friend, as a medic rewrapped his ribs. "Soon enough," Mr. Thompson replied, "after I see this through." An hour passed, then 2. Ethan grew increasingly anxious, pacing the small conference room despite his exhaustion. Finally, the door opened to reveal a woman in surgical scrubs. "Dr. Westfield, Chief Veterinary Surgeon," she introduced herself. "I'm overseeing the dog's care." "How's Brave?" Ethan asked immediately. Dr. Westfield's expression was professionally neutral. "All 3 dogs have sustained significant injuries. Luna's poison exposure caused organ damage that we're treating. Shadow has multiple fractures that are being set. Brave." She hesitated. "Please," Ethan whispered, "just tell me. The bullet he took for you caused substantial internal bleeding. We've repaired what we can, but he lost a lot of blood. The next 12 hours will be critical." Ethan's face crumpled. "Can I see him? Please. He might feel better if I'm there." Dr. Westfield glanced at General Harkins, who nodded slightly. 5 minutes, she conceded. "He's still under sedation, but studies show familiar presences can help recovery, even in unconscious patients." They followed her to a state-of-the-art veterinary facility that rivaled any human hospital. Luna and Shadow occupied separate recovery areas, monitored by advanced equipment. Brave lay in a special intensive care unit, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped steadily, tracking his vital signs. Ethan approached slowly, tears streaming down his face at the sight of the once strong dog looking so vulnerable. He reached out carefully, placing his small hand on Brave's head. "Hey, Brave," he whispered. "It's me, Ethan. You saved me, boy. Now you need to get better, okay? Please get better." The monitors continued their steady rhythm, giving no indication that Brave heard or felt the boy's presence. But as Ethan continued to stroke the dog's head gently, speaking soft words of encouragement, one of the veterinary technicians monitoring the equipment looked up in surprise. "His heart rate is stabilizing," she reported, blood pressure improving slightly. Dr. Westfield checked the readings herself, her professional detachment slipping momentarily. "Remarkable," she murmured. "The bond between them is actually having a measurable physiological effect." "These aren't ordinary dogs," Mr. Thompson said quietly, "and Ethan isn't an ordinary boy." When the 5 minutes ended, Ethan reluctantly left Brave's side, extracting a promise from Dr. Westfield that she would send updates hourly, no matter how small the change. Back in the conference room, General Harkins was waiting with news of his own. "We have accessed the data from the chips," he announced. "What we found confirms our worst fears about Holt's operations." He activated a screen showing surveillance footage, clearly from a dog's eye view, of military personnel engaging civilians in what appeared to be a remote village. The footage was disturbing, documenting clear violations of military protocol and international law. "This was Operation Stillwater," General Harkins explained grimly, "officially recorded as a precision strike against known terrorists. These files tell a different story. Civilians targeted, evidence planted after the fact, witnesses eliminated." "And the dogs recorded it all," Jake said, understanding dawning. "Military K9S are equipped with camera vests during operations," Mr. Thompson explained. "Standard procedure meant to provide additional tactical data. But these dogs," he gestured to the footage, "they weren't just recording, they were gathering evidence." "On whose orders?" Dr. Green asked. "If not Holt's?" "Mine," came a new voice from the doorway. They turned to see an elderly man in civilian clothes leaning heavily on a cane. Despite his age and apparent frailty, he carried himself with military bearing. "General Sullivan," Mr. Thompson said, rising to his feet despite his injuries. "I didn't expect to see you here, sir. When one of my final operations comes back to haunt us, I make it my business to be present," Sullivan replied, entering the room. He turned to General Harkins. "Frank, good to see you. Wish it were under better circumstances." General Harkins offered Sullivan a chair. General Sullivan was head of special operations before his retirement 3 years ago, Holt's predecessor. Sullivan nodded, his weathered face grave. "And the one who authorized the enhanced training program for these particular dogs." He looked at Ethan. "So, you're the boy who found them. The universe has a strange sense of justice sometimes." "You knew what Holt was doing?" Jake asked, unable to keep the accusation from his voice. "Suspected," Sullivan corrected. "Had no proof. Holt was careful, covering his tracks, eliminating witnesses. When I retired, I made certain contingency plans." "The dogs," Mr. Thompson realized. "You had them programmed to recognize and record specific illegal activities." Sullivan nodded. "Their training included pattern recognition for civilian casualties, illegal detainment procedures, evidence tampering. If they witnessed such events, their vests would automatically tag and encrypt that footage separately from regular mission data." "And Holt found out," General Harkins continued, "when these 3 dogs were deployed to Operation Stillwater. When they returned, their handler must have noticed the special encryption tags. So he killed the handler and tried to eliminate the dogs," Jake concluded, horror in his voice. "Along with any evidence they'd gathered," Sullivan confirmed. "He underestimated their resilience, and he certainly never counted on a brave little boy finding them." Ethan had been listening silently, trying to absorb the complex adult situation. Now he spoke up, his voice small but clear. "Is that why Brave is called Brave? Because he was brave enough to record bad things?" Sullivan smiled sadly. "His official designation was Bravo 7, but Brave seems much more fitting now, doesn't it?" The door opened again, this time revealing Captain Reynolds. "Sir, Colonel Holt has arrived. He's in the secure holding area." General Harkins rose. "I'll handle the initial interrogation. I want full recording, by the book. Nothing he can use to wiggle out of this later." "I'm coming too," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "He and I have unfinished business." "As do I," Sullivan added, struggling to his feet. Before they could leave, Dr. Westfield appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "I need to speak with Ethan," she said, "about Brave." Ethan's heart dropped, fear clutching at his chest. He felt his father's hand on his shoulder, steadying him. "What is it?" he managed to ask. "Is he—" "His condition has changed, Doctor," Westfield said carefully. "I think you should come see for yourself." The walk back to the veterinary unit felt endless. Ethan tried to prepare himself for the worst, remembering how still Brave had looked, how many tubes and machines had been keeping him alive. When they reached Brave's recovery area, Ethan froze in the doorway, unable to believe what he was seeing. Brave was awake, still connected to monitors and IVs, still clearly weak and injured, but his eyes were open, alert, and fixed on the doorway as if he'd been waiting for Ethan to appear. "He started showing signs of consciousness about 20 minutes ago," Dr. Westfield explained, professional composure giving way to amazement. "His vital signs have been steadily improving. Well, I've worked with military dogs for 15 years, and I've never seen a recovery curve like this." Ethan approached the bedside slowly, hardly daring to believe what he was seeing. When Brave's tail gave a feeble thump against the blankets, a sob of relief escaped him. "Hey, boy," he whispered, carefully stroking the dog's head. "You're awake." Brave made a soft sound in his throat, trying to move closer to Ethan, despite his injuries and the medical equipment. "Easy," Dr. Westfield cautioned. "He's still very weak." But there was no denying the connection between boy and dog. As Ethan continued talking softly to Brave, the monitors showed further improvement in the dog's vital signs. "The mind-body connection can be powerful," Dr. Westfield observed, "especially in these dogs. Their psychological training is as advanced as their physical training." Jake watched the scene with mixed emotions. Profound relief at Brave's improvement, but also a new understanding of how extraordinary these animals truly were. "Will he recover completely?" he asked quietly. Dr. Westfield considered the question. "It's too soon to say for certain. The injuries were severe, but military shepherds like these are bred for resilience, and his will to live seems remarkably strong." She nodded toward Ethan. "I think your son might be the best medicine we could possibly give him." In the days that followed, life at Fort Bennet fell into a routine. Ethan spent most of his waking hours in the veterinary unit, dividing his time between all three dogs, but focusing especially on Brave. Jake alternated between keeping his son company and participating in the ongoing investigation into Colonel Holt's activities. The evidence from the dog's chips proved irrefutable. Combined with testimony from several of Holt's subordinates who chose to cooperate in exchange for leniency, it painted a damning picture of corruption, illegal operations, and cover-ups spanning multiple years and several countries. "He'll face court-martial," General Harkins informed them a week after their arrival, along with at least 12 others in his direct command chain. The civilian authorities in the affected regions will also be pursuing separate charges. "What about the dogs?" Ethan asked. It was the question he'd been afraid to ask until now, afraid of the answer. General Sullivan, who had remained at the base to oversee the case personally, exchanged glances with Harkins. "They're military assets, technically, but given the circumstances..." He smiled at Ethan. "Exceptions can be made." Brave's recovery continued to defy medical expectations. 2 weeks after their arrival at Fort Bennet, he was able to stand and walk short distances, though he tired quickly. Luna and Shadow showed similar improvement, their bond with Ethan growing stronger each day. "They're healing each other," Dr. Westfield remarked to Jake, watching as Ethan read storybooks to the three dogs in their shared recovery room. "It's quite extraordinary." On the evening of their 15th day at the base, Mr. Thompson found Ethan in the veterinary unit, all three dogs curled around him as he slept in a chair, a children's book still open on his lap. "Quite a sight," he said softly to Jake, who stood watching from the doorway. "Never thought I'd see the day," Jake admitted. "My son, 3 military dogs, and a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top. Sounds like a movie." "Truth is stranger than fiction," Mr. Thompson observed. He hesitated, then added, "General Harkins says we can leave whenever we're ready. The formal statements are complete, and the investigation will continue without our daily input." "What about them?" Jake nodded toward the dogs. "That's what I came to discuss," Mr. Thompson said. "Sullivan has a proposal." Later that evening, after Ethan had been gently coaxed back to their temporary quarters on base, Jake shared the news. "Mr. Thompson says we can go home soon," he began carefully. Ethan's face fell. "But what about Brave, and Shadow and Luna? They're not fully better yet." Jake sat beside his son on the bed. "That's the thing, buddy. General Sullivan has officially retired the dogs from military service. They need homes." Hope dawned in Ethan's eyes. "Can we take them? Please, Dad? At least Brave?" "Actually," Jake said slowly, "Sullivan was thinking all three should stay together. They're a unit, a team. Separating them would be hard on them after everything they've been through." Ethan's expression crumpled. "So, we can't take any of them?" "I didn't say that." Jake took a deep breath. Mr. Thompson has a big place on the edge of town, plenty of space for 3 dogs and maybe a boy and his dad who might want to visit. Often. Ethan stared at his father, processing the implication. Mr. Thompson would take them? All of them? He's the most qualified, Jake explained. He worked with dogs like these for years. He knows their training, their needs, and... He paused meaningfully. He said he could use help, a lot of help, from someone who has a special connection with them. Understanding dawned on Ethan's face. Me? Jake nodded. If you're up for it, it would mean spending a lot of time at Mr. Thompson's place, maybe even weekends. Yes, Ethan exclaimed, throwing his arms around his father. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. 1 month later, they returned home, not to their old house, which had too many security concerns given the high-profile nature of the Holt case, but to a new home on the outskirts of town, just down the road from Mr. Thompson's property. The 3 dogs, still recovering but growing stronger each day, settled into their new life with remarkable adaptability. Mr. Thompson converted his barn into a state-of-the-art training facility where he worked with the dogs daily, helping them transition from military service to something like civilian life. Ethan was there every day after school, watching in awe as Brave, Shadow, and Luna demonstrated their extraordinary intelligence and abilities. Weekends were spent entirely at the compound, as they came to call it, where Ethan was learning how to work with the dogs under Mr. Thompson's expert guidance. He has a gift, Mr. Thompson told Jake one afternoon as they watched Ethan leading Brave through a gentle exercise routine designed to strengthen the dog's healing muscles. The dogs trust him completely. That's rare, especially with animals trained for such specialized work. 6 months after the events at Fort Bennett, the dogs were almost fully recovered. Brave would always carry scars, both physical and otherwise, but his bond with Ethan had healed something deep within him, something that might have been lost forever, if not for a curious little boy who followed the sound of whimpering under rubble. On a warm Saturday, as Ethan played with all 3 dogs in Mr. Thompson's sprawling backyard, General Sullivan paid them a surprise visit. He moved more slowly now, his health clearly declining, but his eyes lit up at the sight of the dogs running freely, playing with the boy who had saved them. They look happy, Sullivan observed. At peace. As much as they can be, Mr. Thompson agreed. The nightmares are less frequent now. Sullivan nodded, understanding that Thompson referred not just to the dogs, but to Ethan, and perhaps to himself as well. Some scars weren't visible, but ran just as deep. I brought something, Sullivan said, handing Thompson an envelope. Official adoption papers. They're legally yours now. Or, rather, yours and the boys. Joint custody, you might say. Mr. Thompson accepted the envelope with visible emotion. Thank you, sir. Ethan noticed their visitor and came running over, Brave trotting faithfully at his side. The dog's limp was barely noticeable now, his coat glossy and full once more. General Sullivan, Ethan greeted him. Look at Brave. He can run again. Sullivan knelt with difficulty to greet the dog, who approached with dignified recognition. Hello, old friend, he said softly. You did well. Above and beyond. Brave sat at attention, every inch the soldier, despite his new civilian life. Sullivan's eyes misted as he looked from the dog to the boy. You know, he said to Ethan, in all my years in the military, I've given out many medals for bravery. But what you did, finding these dogs, staying with them through everything that followed, that's a special kind of courage. Ethan shrugged, embarrassed by the praise. Brave's the hero. He saved me. You saved each other, Sullivan corrected gently. That's how the best partnerships work. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the yard, Jake watched his son running with the dogs, Shadow and Luna racing ahead while Brave stayed protectively close to Ethan. The scene would have been unimaginable to him just 6 months ago. One small discovery, a whimper beneath rubble that most would have ignored, had changed everything. It had exposed corruption, delivered justice, and most importantly, had taught his son about courage, loyalty, and the incredible bond that can form between humans and animals when both are fighting for something that matters. Brave looked up, meeting Jake's gaze across the yard with that uncanny intelligence that still sometimes took Jake by surprise. In that moment, with the setting sun turning the dog's coat to gold, Jake could have sworn he saw understanding in those eyes. Gratitude, perhaps, or simply the quiet acknowledgement that they were all exactly where they were meant to be. What do you think will happen with Ethan and Brave's future together? Like, share, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.